United States and Canada at a turning point, trade, energy, defense, and the warning signs we cannot ignore. For more than 150 years, the relationship between the United States and Canada has been one of the most stable partnerships in the modern world. We share the longest undefended border on earth. Every single day, more than $2 billion in goods and services cross that border. Our supply chains are integrated. Our energy systems are connected. Our defense systems are linked through NORAD. Families live on both sides. Businesses operate seamlessly across both countries. This relationship has survived world wars, the Cold War, financial crises, and political disagreements. It has survived leadership changes and policy disputes. It has been strong not because leaders always agreed, but because institutions were respected and predictability was maintained. However, in recent years, warning signs have appeared. Tariffs have been imposed. Trade agreements have been renegotiated under pressure. Political rhetoric has become sharper. Energy projects have been cancelled or delayed for political reasons. Defense discussions have included talk of diversification. None of these developments by themselves mean collapse, but when taken together, they represent strain, and strain that is ignored becomes deterioration. Deterioration that is not corrected becomes structural damage. This is not a video about panic. This is a video about early warning. Responsible people do not wait for collapse. They speak when they see cracks forming, trade tensions, and tariff escalation. In 2018, under President Donald Trump, the United States imposed tariffs on Canadian steel and aluminum using national security justification under Section 232. Canada was formally described as a potential national security threat. For many Canadians, this was deeply shocking. Canada and the United States have fought wars together. They share intelligence. They defend North America jointly. Canada responded with retaliatory tariffs on American goods. While those tariffs were later removed, the psychological impact remained. For the first time in modern memory, trade between the two countries was openly weaponized. Around the same time, the North American Free Trade Agreement was renegotiated into the United States-Mexico-Canada Agreement. The agreement ultimately preserved continental trade, but the negotiation process created months of uncertainty. Businesses delayed investment, manufacturers paused expansion plans. Automotive supply chains, which stretch from Ontario to Michigan to Ohio, faced instability. Trade thrives on predictability. When unpredictability enters the system, even temporarily, it affects confidence. Confidence is invisible but powerful. Without it, businesses hesitate and markets fluctuate. Energy interdependence and political risk. Canada is the largest foreign supplier of energy to the United States. Oil from Alberta feeds American refineries. Natural gas crosses the border daily. Hydroelectric power from Quebec supplies states in the northeast. Energy interdependence is not symbolic, it is structural. When energy projects become politicized, uncertainty increases. The Keystone XL pipeline cancellation under President Joe Biden showed how cross-border infrastructure can be affected by domestic politics. For investors, that signals risk. If energy is ever used as negotiation leverage between allies, the consequences would be serious. Even the perception that energy could be politicized weakens long-term investment planning. Energy security depends on stability and trust, defense integration and long-term trust. The United States and Canada share defense responsibilities through NORAD, the North American Aerospace Defense Command. Since 1958, NORAD has monitored and defended North American airspace. This level of integration is rare in international relations. Defense procurement decisions in Canada, including the eventual selection of the F-35 fighter jet program, reflect continued integration with the United States defense industry. However, when political rhetoric becomes confrontational, allies naturally begin discussing diversification as a precaution. Diversification discussions do not mean abandonment. They signal hedging against uncertainty. But hedging itself reflects reduced confidence in predictability. In defense relationships, predictability is essential. Mark Carney and Canada's economic philosophy. Mark Carney is one of Canada's most respected economic figures. He served as governor of the Bank of Canada and later as governor of the Bank of England. He is known internationally for his focus on financial stability, risk management, and long term resilience. Carney's economic philosophy emphasizes diversification, climate transition planning, and institutional strength. When Canadian leaders speak about diversifying trade beyond the United States toward Europe and the Indo Pacific region, this reflects that philosophy of risk management. Diversification is not hostility, it is insurance. But insurance is purchased when risk is perceived. The fact that Canada increasingly discusses diversification signals that political unpredictability has been noticed. Economic strain in a broader context. It is important to acknowledge that recent economic stress across North America has multiple causes. The global pandemic disrupted supply chains worldwide. Inflation surged globally, central banks raised interest rates sharply. The war in Ukraine affected energy and food markets. However, when trade tensions are added to global shocks, the strain intensifies. Businesses already facing inflation and higher borrowing costs become more cautious when policy unpredictability is layered on top. Housing markets in both countries experience corrections after rapid pandemic era increases. Some sectors saw rising bankruptcies. Investment slowed in certain industries. While these trends cannot be attributed solely to trade tensions, unpredictability adds pressure to an already stressed system. What has not collapsed? It is essential to remain factual. The United States and Canada continue to trade at very high levels. Energy continues to flow. The USMCA agreement remains in force. NORAD remains operational. Intelligence sharing continues. The border remains open for commerce and travel. Institutions have not collapsed. The relationship is not broken. But tone matters, language matters. Labeling a close ally as a national security threat leaves lasting memory. Political rhetoric about borders or sovereignty can create emotional reaction even if no formal policy follows. Warning signs and responsibility. President Trump's decision in 2018 to impose tariffs on Canadian metals under national security grounds was a significant escalation. That move initiated a period of heightened tension. Even if later adjusted, the precedent was set that trade with allies could be treated as leverage. Future leaders must understand that short-term political gain can create long-term strategic cost. Allies that feel economically pressured may seek alternatives. Even partial diversification over time can reduce interdependence. At the same time, Canada must avoid overreaction that permanently damages integration. Geography binds these nations, economic logic binds them, shared democratic institutions bind them. The path forward. Corrective measures are straightforward in principle, though complex in execution. Trade agreements must be respected. National security language should not be used casually against allies. Energy flows should be depoliticized. Defense cooperation should be reinforced rather than questioned. Diplomatic tone should reflect partnership rather than rivalry. Public confidence improves when leaders speak responsibly. Investors respond positively to stability. Businesses expand when policy risk declines. Conclusion. Collapse does not happen overnight. It begins with small fractures. It accelerates when warning signs are dismissed. It can be prevented when responsible leaders act early. The United States and Canada have built one of the strongest bilateral relationships in modern history. That relationship has endured because institutions were stronger than personalities. We are not witnessing collapse, but we have witnessed strain, and strain requires attention. If both countries recognize the value of stability and mutual respect, the partnership will continue to thrive. If political rhetoric continues to override institutional wisdom, erosion may slowly deepen. The choice remains open. Early warning is not hostility, it is protection. The future of this relationship depends not on fear but on responsible leadership, institutional respect, and a renewed commitment to partners